A game that I used to love when I was little was Mario Kart 64, and one of the things that always stuck out in my memory was the Nintendo logo that you see when you fire up the game. Today I'm going to show you how you can create something like this for yourself using your own text. So the first thing we're going to do is delete the light and the cube. We'll leave the camera there because we'll need it when we render it out. Now we want to add text, and once you've done that, tab into edit mode, delete the sample text, then type the text that you actually want to see, which in my case is Blender Blitz. Now you're going to tab back into object mode, go to text properties, and change the horizontal alignment to centered. If you want a different font, now is a good time to choose the one you want. This is optional, but I'm a sucker for Tahoma Bold, so that's what I'm going to go with. Now in the Object Properties tab, we're going to rotate this 90 degrees on the x-axis. Then we're going to go back to Text Properties, and under the Geometry menu, change the Extrude value to 0.2 meters. Now we're going to add another text object. Tab into Edit mode and change it to a capital O. Tab back into Object mode and change the alignment to centered. Rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis as we did with the other text. Now I'm also going to change the font to Tahoma Bold. This is optional, but I think it makes it look more authentic. Then we're going to extrude it by 0.2 meters, same as we did with the text. Now we're going to scale this up on the X and Y axes, but not the Z axis. What we're going for here is to ensure that the hole in the O clears both the top and the bottom of the logo, and we're going to position the O on the Z axis such that the hole does so. When that's done, we're going to convert the O to a mesh, and now that it's a mesh, tab into edit mode and turn on X-ray viewport. We are now going to stretch this O out to create the very wide ovular shape around the text. So what we're going to do is highlight every vertex on the left side of the O. The way we have it set up, the blue line in the background perfectly bisects this O down the middle. So what you want to do is highlight every vertex to the left of that. It's very important that X-ray mode is on for this step, so you can highlight the vertices on the back at the same time as the ones on the front. This is much easier to manage with the front view you can get by clicking on the green Y up here. And once you have every vertex on the left side of the center highlighted, not including the ones on the center, you're going to use the Move tool to move all these vertices 1.95 meters to the left on the x-axis. Now, depending on how long or short your text is, this number might actually be different for you, but what you're going for is to ensure that it stretches out long enough so that it covers all of the text. Then you're going to highlight every vertex on the right of the center and stretch those by the same distance in the opposite direction, and the result should look something like this. Now tab back into object mode. Now it's time to add the gold material. So go to the Materials tab, add a new material, switch the base color to something resembling gold, turn metallic up to 1, and turn roughness down to 0.15. Remember to switch to the new material for both the text and the oval. Now we're going to add a background to light the scene. The one I'm using is called Parks Parking 4K.exr, which can be found on Polyhaven. You may wish to download and use a different one, but I like the way this one looks. So go to the World Properties tab, click the yellow button next to Color, and select Environment Texture. Then click Open, which will open an Explorer window, and navigate to wherever you saved your background and open it. And as you can see, we got some very nice looking reflectivity now. Then, under Render Properties, under Film, we're going to click this box labeled Transparent. It's important to note that this won't be a transparent video file in the end. This is just to make the background invisible to us while retaining its reflective properties. Now we're going to right-click Blender Blitz and convert it to a mesh. Then we're going to highlight Blender Blitz and the oval, right-click, and join them. This will make them a singular object, which will make it much easier to animate. Now that they're joined, go to the Output Properties tab and increase the end value for the frame range to 360 and the frame rate to 30 FPS. The result is a 12-second animation running at 30 FPS. The original animation was about 8 seconds long, but what we're going for is a logo whose spinning speed accelerates as it goes along, and we're going to start the render 4 seconds in, mid-acceleration, to achieve that. With that done, go to Object Properties tab and insert a keyframe for the Z rotation at frame 1. Then go all the way to frame 360 and insert another keyframe for the Z rotation. and at this keyframe the value is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of negative 3200 degrees. Now we're going to right click on this keyframe in the timeline, and under interpolation mode we're going to choose cubic. This will make it accelerate as it goes along instead of rotating at a uniform speed the whole time. It's worth noting that if you can't see the keyframes you just put, remember to highlight the object again, or click on view and remove the tick next to this box labeled only keyframes from selected channels. Ideally though, if you have a lot of moving objects, it makes more sense to just highlight the object again. I only bring this up because I had a bit of a mishap around this point where I couldn't figure out why the keyframes weren't appearing, and that was a temporary solution until my brain started working again. But in any case, I think it's a useful little thing to know. Now we're going to place and rotate the camera to make it look at the logo head on. These are the values I ended up with over here, so you should end up with something similar. It is worth noting that although sound can be added to the render in an editing software, including Blender's own editing software, there are some cool effects you can get by adding a speaker directly into the animation beforehand. I added a speaker myself based on this really neat tutorial by Olav3D. I can easily recommend that you check out that video. I'll try to link it in the description, but if it's not there, please yell at me because sometimes I forget. Now it's time to render this out. The first thing we're going to do, under Output Properties, is switch the frame start value to 120. This will start the animation 4 seconds in, as I alluded to earlier. Under File Format, we're going to select FFmpeg Video. Under Container in the Encoding drop-down menu, select MPEG-4. Under Output Quality, select Perceptually Lossless. Also, it's important to note that if you did choose to add the speaker, you're going to want to change the audio codec from No Audio to AAC. AAC is one of the more widely used audio codecs out there, at least as far as video files are concerned, so if your goal is to avoid playback issues, this will be your favorite codec. Now before we render it out, we're going to go to Scene Properties and tick this box next to Motion Blur, so we can recreate the motion blur. These are the motion blur settings that I ended up with, but if you'd like to tweak these for yourself, you are welcome to do so. If you want to see what they look like, you can go up here and click Render Image to see how the blur looks in a single frame. Once you have all that set up, return to the Output Properties tab. Select the directory you want to render to, and then hit Render Animation. Once the animation is rendered, you're going to want to save this file if you haven't already, and open a new video editing file. The purpose of this next step is to add the fade in and fade out effect that the original intro had. So navigate to the directory you just rendered the animation to, and drag the animation onto the timeline. Then we're going to add a color. The default color is black, which is what we want. We're going to drag it above the animation on the timeline, right click it, and click Fade Out. Now we're going to go up here and lower the frame end from 250 to 240. The frame rate should have automatically switched to 30 FPS by now, but if it hasn't, you can switch it yourself. With that done, we're going to add another color, but this time it's going to be white. So drag it up to white over here. Make sure this color is over top of the animation just like the other one, and drag it to the end. You're going to right click and click Fade In. You can also take this opportunity to adjust the audio settings. In my case, I thought it was too quiet, so I increased the volume to 7.9. Now it's time to render it out again using the same settings we had for the original render, and the result should look something like this. And here's a side-by-side comparison. And now you know how to do it for yourself. Thank you for watching.